Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are focusing on a very specific, very high stakes moment that I think, well, it induces a very particular kind of panic.
Oh, absolutely.
It's that feeling of sitting in a waiting room, palms sweating, staring at the door. You're waiting to be called in to prove in about 11 to 14 minutes that you can actually speak a language you might have been studying for a decade.
Yeah, the pressure is real.
We are looking, of course, at the IELTS speaking exam.
It's a complete pressure cooker. And what's really interesting about the research and the strategies we're looking at today is that they focus specifically on part one of that exam.
Which is, often branded as the easy part, right? Like it's just the introduction.
Technically, yeah. I mean, it's supposed to be the icebreaker.
Mm.
But looking at the data and the coaching strategies in our source stack, this is actually where a significant number of really high potential candidates they derail themselves.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Right at the start.
Right at the start. They don't necessarily fail here, but they set a trajectory for a much lower score than they actually deserve because they misunderstand the assignment.
Because they overthink it.
Exactly. They treat what should be a casual chat like a doctoral defense.
Hmm.
They go in with this heavy armor of complex vocabulary and they just trip over it immediately.
So the mission for this deep dive is to unpack a strategy that keeps popping up in the documentation we reviewed. They call it decompose and distill, which, it sounds a bit like a chemistry experiment.
It does sound scientific, yeah.
But reading through the notes, it seems to be much more about psychological risk management for the listener than anything else.
It is effectively a safety protocol. The core philosophy in the source material is that IELTS Speaking Part 1 isn't an interrogation. It's a warm-up.
Right.
But if you go in trying to impress the examiner with these complex, labyrinthine sentences right out of the gate, you're actually increasing your cognitive load.
Making it harder on yourself.
You're making your brain work way too hard, way too early in the test.
And I imagine that leads to the stumble.
Right. And once you stumble in that first minute, your confidence just craters. You start second-guessing every verb tense, every word choice, and then the rest of the exam becomes this desperate struggle to recover. So decompose and distill is really about stripping away the noise to ensure absolute flow and fluency.
Well, let's get into the mechanics of this, because I think it goes against what a lot of you listeners might have been taught in traditional classrooms. The most prominent rule in the text is something they call the 3-sentence rule, or, 2 to 3 sentences. And when I first read this, I have to be honest, I was a bit skeptical.
I get that reaction a lot, actually.
Because we're taught that language exams are about showing off your range, right? If I only speak for 2 or 3 sentences, aren't I hiding my ability?
Yeah, it feels counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
But think about the scoring criteria. Fluency and coherence make up 25% of your score. If you try to speak for 2 minutes on a simple question like, where do you live, you will inevitably start rambling.
You just run out of things to say.
Exactly. You lose the thread, you pause to search for words, you repeat yourself.
So brevity actually protects your fluency score.
Precisely. It's about density, not length. The source suggests a very specific structure. You answer the question directly, you add a detail or a reason, and then you stop. You stop while you are still grammatically perfect.
It's the quit while you're ahead strategy.
In part 1. Yes, absolutely. Save the complex philosophical monologues for part 3. Part 1 is just about accuracy, speed, and social calibration.
The text also mentions a phrase that really stood out to me, which is avoid big grammar. And again, this feels like bad advice at first glance. I thought the whole point was to use big grammar to impress them.
Well, it depends on the context. If you use a triple conditional sentence with inverted syntax just to tell the examiner you like ice cream,
You sound slightly unhinged.
you don't sound smart. You sound rehearsed. Or worse, totally unnatural. The examiner wants to see if you can communicate effectively in a standard social setting.
So if I say, I live in an apartment, that's better than getting tangled in some complex sentence and messing up the verb tense.
A perfect simple sentence beats a broken complex sentence every single time. The source explicitly warns that complex grammar in part 1 just increases the probability of an error without significantly boosting your score for that specific section. It's a risk with almost no reward.
Okay, so we have the mental framework. Keep it tight, keep it accurate. But there's a physical element here too, which I found fascinating. The source material spends a surprising amount of time talking about smiling and breathing. Is that just, fluff to calm people down, or is there a tactical reason for it?
Oh, it's highly tactical. There's a bit of biohacking going on here. When you're nervous, your breathing naturally becomes shallow. And this actually restricts oxygen to the brain, which inhibits your ability to access vocabulary.
Wow.
You literally can't find the words because your brain is stuck in fight or flight mode.
So the advice to breathe isn't just self-care, it's literally to fuel the language center of your brain.
Exactly. And the source advises to just say hello nicely. Actually changes the shape of your mouth and the tone of your voice. It makes you sound more resonant and friendly.
Right.
In linguistics, we talk about prosody, which is the music of speech. A smile naturally improves your prosody. It makes you sound more fluent, even if you're using very simple words.
It's hard to sound like a robot when you're smiling.
It's impossible. It forces a certain warmth into the vowels that examiners pick up on subconsciously.
Okay, I want to move from the abstract to the concrete now. The source material provides 4 very specific scenarios, almost like scripts, that walk us through the exam. I want to decompose these with you because I think they really highlight the difference between what candidates think they should say versus what actually scores well.
Let's do it. I think role-playing these is the best way to see it in action.
Perfect. Scenario 1, the introduction. So you walk in, you sit down, and the examiner asks, "What is your name?" Now, the trap here, according to the text, is the resume dump.
Oh, the resume dump is a classic error. It goes something like, my name is John, I am an engineer with 10 years of experience, and I am from...
Why is that bad, though? I mean, it's accurate information about who you are.
It's bad because it's not what was asked. The examiner asked for your name. If you start listing your job history, it immediately signals that you have this memorized script in your head that you've just been waiting to vomit out. It sounds completely artificial.
It signals low listening comprehension, too, doesn't it? Like you didn't actually listen to the specific question being asked.
Exactly. So the decompose and distill fix for this is radical simplicity. The example in the source is, my name is Ash Fake, and you can call me Ash.
That's it.
That's the whole answer.
I really like the second half of that, though. You can call me Ash.
That is actually a high-level power move.
Really?
All right.
Because it seems so casual.
It is casual, but it does 2 very important things. 1, it establishes a nickname, which is a very native speaker thing to do.
Right.
It asserts a level of cultural comfort. And 2, it acts as a polite command. Please call me this short name. It establishes a human connection and puts you slightly more on equal footing with the examiner. You aren't just candidate number whatever, you're Ash.
It asserts identity. I like that a lot. Okay, moving to scenario 2. Geography. The hometown question. Where are you from?
Now this is where people fall into what I call the Wikipedia trap. They start reciting population statistics, founding dates, historical facts, founded in 1840 by whoever.
Right, because they want to show that they know sophisticated facts and vocabulary.
But the examiner doesn't care about the facts of your town. They care about the adjectives you use to describe it. The source gives us a great formula here. Location plus vibe plus personal history.
Let's hear the source's example for this one.
Okay, it goes, my hometown is Islamabad. It's the capital city with green hills and modern buildings. I've lived here my whole life.
And that is deceptively simple.
It is. But look at the components. Location is Islamabad. Vibe is capital. Green hills, modern buildings. History's lived here my whole life. 3 simple sentences.
Green hills and modern buildings. I noticed the source didn't use words like picturesque landscape or metropolitan infrastructure.
And that is the key. Green hills creates an immediate, clear, visual image in the examiner's mind. Picturesque landscape is a cliche. It's abstract. Concrete nouns and simple adjectives often score much higher because they communicate meaning faster. You're painting a picture. You're not reading a textbook.
The source also mentions a follow-up here. Usually the examiner asks something like, what's the best part? Or do you like it there?
Right. And the advice is to zoom in. Don't say everything is great. Pick one specific thing. The example given in the text focuses on parks. Places like Margalla Hills are great for walks, and many people visit for fresh air.
It's very grounded. Walks, fresh air.
And notice the signposting language the source suggests. Things like, the fun part is, or it's a big city with. These are natural conversational bridges. They aren't formal connectors like furthermore or moreover, which would be totally weird in a casual chat about your hometown.
That's a really important distinction for you listening. Furthermore, belongs in your writing essay, not in a conversation about a park.
Exactly. Using essay words in Speaking Part 1 actually hurts your score because it shows a lack of awareness of register. You're using formal language in an informal setting.
What about the employment question? Like if they ask about jobs in your hometown, that feels like a trap to start talking about GDP and economic sectors.
It definitely is a trap. The source advises keeping it super general. Many people work in offices or tourism here. That covers 90% of the bases. You don't need to explain the microeconomics of your region. Just give a general category and move on.
Offices or tourism. That literally covers almost everything. Okay, let's go deeper into the personal space. Scenario 3, the home, or as the text calls it, the sanctuary.
This is often where the questions shift from where do you live generally to describe your specific home.
The source example for this one struck me as just very relatable. It says, I live in an apartment in a tall building. It's in a quiet area, not too big, but comfy for my family.
Not too big, but comfy. That phrase right there, but comfy, is excellent natural English. It's way better than saying it is of moderate size and comfortable. Comfy is a feeling,
It sounds like a human being actually talking to another human being.
which is the ultimate goal of the test.
Yeah.
And then there's the follow-up, who do you live with? The suggested answer is, I live with my parents and brother. We've been together for years, and it's nice.
And it's nice. It's so simple. It's almost funny. Is that really enough for an IELTS exam?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It closes the thought perfectly. It prevents that awkward silence where the examiner is staring at you, waiting for you to finish your sentence. You've signaled, I'm done. Next question, please.
But here is where I think the distill strategy really shines. The favorite room question. Because this is where I would totally be tempted to describe every single piece of furniture I own.
And you would bore the examiner to tears if you did that. The source suggests focusing on visual anchors instead. Listen to this answer. My bedroom is my favorite. It has a small desk for studying and posters on the walls, one of mountains and one of a city.
The posters, that detail is just so specific.
It's cinematic. Suddenly, I'm not just hearing a list about a room, I'm actually seeing it. One of mountains, one of a city. It tells a little story about the person. Maybe they like nature and travel. And you did it with basic, everyday vocabulary. You didn't need to say, I have decorative lithographs depicting topographical features.
So the lesson here is pick 2 or 3 objects that represent the room and just ignore the rest.
Yes. Distill the room down to its absolute essence. The desk implies work. The posters imply personality. That is all you need.
Let's move to the final scenario, which the text calls the fork in the road. Work or study. You're almost guaranteed to get one of these tracks.
Yes, and this is where candidates often feel this immense pressure to sound professional or academic, which almost always leads to them sounding stiff.
Let's look at path A first, the worker. The example they give is a teacher.
So the question is usually, what do you do? Simple answer, I work as a teacher in a school. But the follow-up, what is your daily routine, is where people get totally bogged down.
Right, they start listing every timestamp. At 8 a.m. I do this, at 8:15 I do that, at 9 I have coffee.
Which is agonizing to listen to. The source suggests the rule of 3 for tasks. I plan lessons in the morning, teach classes, and check homework later.
Plan, teach, check.
Verbs. Just focus on the verbs. It's rhythmic, it's clear, and it shows you the vocabulary of your profession without getting lost in the weeds.
Now, what about the negative sandwich? We touched on this briefly before. The source discusses how to answer questions like, what would you change about your job? Or do you dislike anything?
This is tricky because you don't want to sound like a complainer. You want to sound constructive. The strategy they outline is positive opening, then a specific negative, then a positive closing.
The example given is, I don't like the long hours sometimes. If I could, I'd make shorter days.
Right. And then implicitly, you finish with the vibe of, but overall, I like my job. You acknowledge the reality long hours suck, but you frame it within a generally positive attitude.
Okay, let's look at path B, the student. The source uses a computer science major for this one.
This one contains my absolute favorite strategy in the whole deck, the admit weakness maneuver.
This is the math thing, right?
Yes. The question is, do you like your major? The source answer is yes, I enjoy the coding parts a lot. But some math classes are tough. I'm not great at them.
I'm not great at them. I feel like a lot of coaches out there would tell you never to admit you aren't great at something on a test.
Those coaches are wrong. By saying, I'm not great at them, you are actually demonstrating complex language skills. You are using a concession clause. I enjoy X, but Y is difficult. You are distinguishing between different aspects of your experience. That is a higher level cognitive function than just saying, I love computer science, it is great, math is great.
That's a really good point. Nuance actually scores higher than blind enthusiasm.
Absolutely. And it's honest. Honesty is usually much easier to remember than a lie. If you hate math, just say you hate math. Just do it politely.
So we've covered the 4 scenarios. We know we need to decompose, break it down, and to still keep it simple. But knowing this intellectually and actually doing it when your heart is pounding in the exam room are two very different things. The source has a section devoted to this called the training montage.
Cue the training music.
Exactly. The first tool is the Tech Assist, which is just the phone in your pocket.
We all hate the sound of our own voice. It's a universal human truth. But the source is totally adamant on this. You must record yourself.
What exactly are we listening for when we play it back? Just grammar mistakes.
Grammar? Sure. But mostly, you're listening for silence and speed. Are you talking so fast you're tripping over your words? Are there long, awkward pauses where you're searching your brain for a big word? The recording reveals the gap between what you think you sound like and what you actually sound like.
It provides objective feedback instead of just your feeling of how it went.
Exactly. And it helps you practice that decomposed strategy. Record yourself answering, "Tell me about your home," in 3 sentences. If you find yourself rambling on to sentence 6 or 7, stop, delete the audio, try again. You need to train your brain to feel what 3 sentences actually feels like.
Now, there is one final pregame ritual mentioned in the source that I thought was just brilliant, the 10-minute rule.
I love this one too. The advice is, listen to English podcasts or watch simple videos for 10 minutes right before the test.
This isn't about studying, right?
Yeah.
Like, you aren't trying to cram new vocabulary words 10 minutes before you walk in.
No, not at all. The learning haze is over at that point. This is entirely about calibration. Your brain has to switch gears. If you spend the morning speaking your native language and then walk into the exam room, your brain has to do a cold start. You'll be translating in your head.
Which is slow, and it leads to awkward pauses and errors.
Right. But if you've been listening to English for 10 minutes, even just passively, maybe listening to a deep dive like this one, your brain is already swimming in the language. The neural pathways are primed and ready.
You're warming up the engine before you get on the highway.
Exactly. So when the examiner says, "What is your name?" you aren't startled. You're already in English mode.
And that connects to the final mindset tip in the text, which I think is a great mantra for anyone facing an exam, really. It says, "My English is fine as it is."
It's a powerful statement of acceptance. It counters the perfectionism that causes all that anxiety. If you go in thinking, "I must not make a single mistake," you will be stiff and terrified. But if you go in thinking, "My English is fine, I'm just here to have a quick chat," you will flow, you will smile, you'll breathe.
And paradoxically, by caring a little less about absolute perfection, you'll probably score higher.
Almost certainly. Tension is the absolute enemy of fluency.
So let's bring this all together. We've covered a lot of ground today. If we had to distill this entire deep dive down to a quick checklist for you listening, what does that look like?
Okay, step 1 is the core strategy. Use the 2 to 3 sentence rule. Answer, detail, stop. Keep the grammar simple and accurate. Don't show off.
Step 2 is the content.
Right. For the intro, give your name and a nickname. Call me Ash. Assert your identity. For your hometown, location, vibe, history, use visual adjectives like green hills. For your home, focus on the feeling. Comfy, not too big. And use specific anchors, like those posters on the wall. And for work or study, use the rule of 3 for your routine plan. Teach, check, and don't be afraid to admit a weakness, as long as you stay positive overall.
And step 3 is the prep.
Record yourself to catch the rambling. Train that muscle. Do the 10-minute warm-up right before you walk in the door to calibrate your brain. And above all, remember to smile and breathe.
It sounds almost too simple when we lay it out like that, but I guess that's the whole point of the decomposed part. We tend to build these exams up into massive monsters in our heads.
We really do. We build the
Yeah.
walls that we then have to exhaust ourselves climbing over. The examiner isn't trying to trick you in part 1. They genuinely just want to know who you are.
Before we sign off, is there one final thought you want to leave our listeners with? Something they can mull over on their own?
You know, thinking back to the posters on the wall example, it raises a really interesting philosophical point about this entire exam. The examiner is not grading your life. They don't care if your room is messy. They don't care if your hometown is boring. They don't care if you're a mediocre mathematician.
Right. It's not a personality test or a lifestyle audit.
They are purely grading your ability to describe your reality. That's a huge distinction. You don't need a fascinating, globe-trotting life to get a band 9. You just need a clear, concrete description of your ordinary life. Your reality is just a prop. Use that prop to show them your English.
That takes the pressure off immensely. You aren't defending your life choices. You're just the narrator of a scene.
Exactly. You're just setting the scene for them. Keep it simple, paint the picture, and get out.
Well, I feel calmer just talking about it. To everyone listening, I hope you feel ready to tackle part 1 with a bit more strategy and a lot less sweat. Grab your phone, record yourself, answering "What is your name" right now, Give yourself a nickname, and remember, keep it simple. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Good luck out there. You've got this.